Hey Fit Bottom friends, it's Allison here for Fit Bottom World at Thrive Yoga in Rockville, Maryland. And today we're going to be talking about side plank, Vashisthasana. We're going to talk about a couple of different variations that you can use for side plank, as well as why you would do that, why we would use those variations. And then also I want to spend a little bit of time focusing on placement of the hand and the position of the shoulder, because that can be a bit tough in this pose. It can feel a little bit like compressive, and so I want to give you some options there as well to kind of make this more comfortable on your shoulder. All right, so let's start walking through some of the variations and see what happens. All right, so the first variation that we'll talk about is a modified side plank position in which your knee is down on the floor. For all of the variations that I'm about to talk about though, understand that the positioning of your shoulder and the positioning of your hand on the floor is going to remain consistent throughout. Anytime you're bearing weight on one arm, you want to maintain a really solid and stable shoulder and hand position. So let's talk about what that is first. So if you come down onto all fours, if you stack your, sort of in this table position, you stacking your wrists underneath your shoulders and your knees underneath your hips. The way that we sort of approach this first variation of side plank is to extend the right leg back and then roll onto the right edge of your foot, the big toe edge of your foot, and then pivot your on your left knee so that your left foot comes to the left side. From there, as you sort of come up, what you don't want to happen is you don't want your elbow to your wrist right underneath your shoulder. It's going to come in at an angle that feels kind of crazy. Right? So you want to take your hand and make sure that your wrist, your elbow, and your shoulder are in a diagonal line so that your hand is a little bit closer towards the top of your mat and not directly down from your shoulder. And then another thing you want to look at is your wrist crease. You want the crease of your wrist to be straight and parallel to the top edge of your mat. So for some of us, we kind of turn the hand a little bit in, and that when you turn the hand in, you turn the shoulder in. And you don't want to be internally rotating your shoulder while you're bearing weight on it. You want it to be more neutral. So the way to make that happen is to take a look at your wrist crease and make sure that it's straight across, just like the top edge of your mat, and that your hand is a little bit closer to the edge of your mat than your shoulder. So you're in a diagonal. Okay? And then from there, roll this left shoulder back. So there's kind of this tendency to kind of cave forward a little bit like we're at our computer. You need to do the opposite of that. You need to kick it back a little bit. So you roll the shoulder blade kind of onto your back, push actively from your shoulder down into your hand so that you're not sinking down into your arm. You push the floor away. That'll help you get access to these obliques here on the side. And then from here, from your outer left hip, push your knee down into the floor. That will move your hips forward in space. Okay, so shoulders rolling back. Hips move forward a little bit. So as your hips move forward, your chest can lean back a little bit. And then with noticing here that this is supposed to be kind of a crunch action at the front of your belly, if you bring your right hand to your hip bone, and then the thumb to the rib cage, think about that space getting shorter, your fingers coming closer together. That will lengthen the back of your body. Squeeze your butt a little bit. So you're pushing from your outer left hip down, and you're pushing into your right foot so that your hips move slightly forward and your tailbone lengthens towards your right heel. Okay? And then from there, you can take your right arm up, broaden across your chest, roll both of your shoulders back a little bit, push into the floor so you stay lifted. Right? So this is a modified side plank position with the knee down. To come out of it, you just look down, rotate your body back, and then come into the table position that we started in. All right? So from there, you would just switch over and do it on the other side. Okay? I'm going to move on to the next variation. So the next variation of this I call kickstand side plank. This is really good for building outer hip strength and stability because you're using one of your legs to help you. I'm going to switch sides though to show you this side. For this kickstand side plank variation, we're going to come at it a little bit differently. So from here, I'm going to bring my left foot up and turn my left toes sort of out to the left side. And then right leg kneeless, and then I'm going to roll onto the pinky edge of my right foot. Now what you want to watch out here for in your ankle is that you're not dropping your ankle towards the floor and rolling onto the side. You want to keep pressing out through your big toe so that your ankle stays fairly straight. You're building ankle stability here. Hand setup is the the same. Right hand, I'm gonna make sure that the wrist crease is parallel to the front edge of my mat, and that my wrist, my elbow, and my shoulder form a diagonal line as opposed to being straight up from the floor. Then left hand to left hip. Roll my right shoulder back, push through my right big toe to keep my right leg really long. That will help me lift the side of my body. And then my left leg is gonna push from my outer left hip down into the floor to get me a little bit more lift. And when you do that, you're gonna feel your outer hip here giving you a little bit of assistance. It feels like a lot in that outer hip. This foot can be anywhere along the way that feels productive, right? So you can kind of move it up or down however you need to. Push from your right shoulder down into the floor to keep lifted through the right side. Push through your right big toe, and then take your left arm up. Right, broaden through the chest, lengthen your tailbone, pull your low belly up towards the bottom of your rib cage so it's still a crunch at the front of your body. You want to feel that core engagement, shortening the front of your body so that you can lengthen the back. Another breath. And then to come out, look down, bring the knee down, hands down, come back into table position. All right, so last variation we're going to work with today is full Vashisthasana, full side plank. And for this variation, I'm going to come back to the original side. So there's a couple of different reasons, or many different reasons actually, why you would use the two variations before this. The first one is really good if you just don't have the ability to keep your hips as lifted using your obliques, using the sides of your core, using those core stabilizers. So having the knee down provides you a little bit more lift and kind of helps to build that strength so that full Vashisthasana is a possibility in the future. The kickstand variation, I really like that variation because it teaches to coordinate your outer hip strength to help you with the core strength and sort of coordinating that so that your pelvis and your lower back are more stabilized. So ultimately over time you have less issues in your lower back because you're able to stabilize properly your pelvis in relation to your spine. Another reason why you might switch that up, it might be too much pressure on your wrist if you've had a wrist injury. Even having your hand in the proper position might be too much, right? And of course you always have the option to come down to a forearm variation. However, another reason is it might be too much on the shoulder, right? To have a little bit of the weight taken off of your shoulder by having your knee or your foot down could be really helpful. All right, so full Vashisthasana, let's set this up. There's a couple of different ways you can approach it with your feet. Some people prefer to have them one in front of the other. Some people will stack. Doesn't really matter. If you have your legs, whichever variation you have your legs in, just remember you need to be squeezing your legs towards each other, all right? Setup for the hands is the same. The way that we approach this, I'm gonna come in from plank position. So set yourself up in plank. Hands are about as wide apart as your shoulders. Come up onto your feet. And already starting to build that crunching action on the core at the front of your belly so that you lengthen your tailbone away. And then wrist creases, make sure they're lined up straight towards the front edge of your mat. And then from here, you're gonna have to shift back a little bit, maybe wiggle your feet back so that your hands are not directly underneath your shoulders. And then I'm gonna roll over to the left, the pinky toe edge of my left foot. I prefer to stack my feet. Again, keep pushing through the big toe of your left foot so that you don't sag into the side of your ankle and drop your hip down. Just keep active and engaged to the whole outer left leg. And then from here, I'm gonna keep pushing into the floor, right? Push forward a little bit too. Roll my left shoulder back. Right arm comes to stack. Can stay here, squeeze my legs together, shorten up the front of my belly, lengthen my tailbone, and then maybe take the right arm up. So I continuously try to push my hips forward and then pull my hips up so that my belly can sort of crunch in here at the core. And that will give me full access to all of those lateral core and pelvic stabilizers. Take a breath in. And then I look down, whoo, transition back, plank, and then release to the heels. All right, guys, so it's more than just about your core, right? Your core and your outer hips do a lot to help stabilize your body. So it's really critical that we get them working together. Side plank, there's really just nothing better for building that coordinated strength. The sides of your body to help stabilize you than a side plank. Again, remember you can always come down onto your forearms. It's a lot easier for most people on their shoulders and on their wrists to be in the forearms and have all of this surface area versus just your hand. It also feels a little bit more balanced. Some of these variations though aren't accessible from an elbow down position. So you could use blocks underneath your forearm to get you a little bit higher. And then that would lift you up so that you're at the height of an extended arm, but you're not putting so much pressure on your wrists. All right guys, give these 3 variations a try. Let me know what you think in the comments. And hopefully you can make friends with side plank. Have a good one, guys.